Hello, I'm Richard Herring,
I'm Abdul.
and this is Sight on Screen. Yeah, I mean,
Right.
I think this, you know what? I don't know if it started like this, but this is another treat yourself. We're
Yeah,
having a good
it
time over here
is.
at with Sight on Screen. You know what?
Yeah, so while we were doing our 10 best and worst of in the 2010s, we
Mm.
mentioned this movie, Parasite, as being sort of the one that won all the Oscars and got a lot of praise, but we hadn't seen it, both of us.
Yeah,
And
neither of us had
so
seen
in the
it.
past, yeah, exactly. So in the past few weeks, I think almost a month ago, I saw it,
Yep.
absolutely loved it, and then immediately recommended it to you.
Yeah, and I've just kind of been dragging my feet and having to get around to it. So yesterday, me and my girlfriend, we sat down, we put it on. And I gotta say, we were both pretty much blown away by this thing.
Yeah, it is definitely a recommend from both of us.
Yep.
This is the kind of movie, I mean, I went in knowing almost nothing about it.
Yeah, I went in cold.
And yeah, and I think that really, really helps. So for anyone who has not seen the movie, we're both highly, highly recommending it. It is definitely one of the best movies of 2019.
Oh
Please
yeah.
treat yourself. Now that
Treat
it's on
yourself.
yeah, so now that it's on like home media, please do yourself a favor, watch it. It is
Yeah, and
definitely
and
worth it.
and don't let anybody spoil it. Don't read up on anything. Let yourself be surprised by this thing.
Yes,
This is one of the ones where
because
sometimes a movie comes along and you're thinking all this hype, all of this like it wins all these awards, and you get disappointed in the end by the product. You know what? I was almost expecting that on this one. I was not disappointed at all.
me neither. I thought the praise I was it was exactly in the same boat. I thought all the praise was overhyped. I had seen Boon Joon-ho's some other movies of his,
Yeah,
like
likewise.
Snowpiercer and Memories of Murder, I believe it's called.
Yes, I've
Memories of
heard
Murder,
of, but
yeah.
I haven't watched that one.
Yes, I had seen both of those. I liked them a lot,
Hmm.
but I expected to like this movie, but I didn't expect to fall in love with it the way that I did.
Yeah, the two I've come across before is Snowpiercer, just like yourself, and The Host,
Ah, yeah, the host, the monster movie that he made.
the monster movie. And I mean, I think that's probably why I was so curious where he was going to go with this, because both of those are so in my genre wheelhouse. You know, one of them is a straight up kind of interesting take on the monster movie, and one of them is a really interesting dystopian sci-fi kind of story.
Hmm.
And to see a guy who directs that kind of stuff really come out of left field and sweep the Oscars like it's almost never been swept before. I mean, you're kind of left
Yeah,
sitting here going, "Wait, what happened? How who this guy? Really?"
yeah, it's kind of amazing winning both best foreign film and best feature film of the year in the
And best
Oscars, which
director
is
for a
best director as well.
non-language
Yeah,
for a non-English feature. I mean, that's kind of unprecedented.
yeah, very much so. So yeah, no, this is definitely a movie worth seeing. It is. I would call it genre defining, but it has so many
Mm.
genres that it's
Yeah,
hard.
no, it does kind of swing back and forth genre-wise. I mean, the only thing I'm gonna go back to the Oscars for 1 second because Bong Joon-ho has one of my favorite quotes ever to the Oscars. At the after party, when asked for
Hmm.
a statement on what he if he'd like to thank the Academy, he said he'd like to apologize to the Academy. It can't have been easy printing Korean names that many times.
Class.
I mean, that's just mm.
Oh, oh God. Yeah, no, his whole acceptance speech was really, really funny because everyone else, I mean, so Hollywood is always seen as, the land of movies. If you love movies, you go to Hollywood, LA,
Yeah,
that's where you
absolutely.
get it. And everyone's acceptance speech was very, very politically motivated. And then this
Yep.
guy comes up, wins like several awards, and each of them is just, hey, look at me, I love movies, and thank you. That's about it.
And I
It
think
was
that
really
my
refreshing to see.
if I remember correctly, because I didn't watch like the full ceremony or anything, but when he got Best Director and he's up there doing that, I think they cut to Tarantino, and it looked like Tarantino was almost relieved he wasn't up there making a political speech, because everyone thought Tarantino was got to get it for Once Upon a Time in Hollywood.
Hmm. But instead, we
Because
got Brad Pitt talking about his fascination with feet.
oh mercy,
Yeah, I didn't see the whole thing either, but I did see the highlight reel.
yeah.
And my God, Brad Pitt's speech was brutal to Tarantino.
I haven't heard this. I haven't seen this.
Oh, you should
I'm
you
kind
should
of.
watch it. It's really funny.
Oh wow. Okay. That sounds. I mean, let's be honest. Tarantino deserves a bit of a roasting occasionally.
Hmm.
Admittedly, though, he did have an amazing thing I saw recently, an interview where someone was asking him about Tarantino movies being violent, and he said, "Well, yes, Tarantino movies are violent, but what are you expecting? It's a Tarantino movie. You don't go to a Metallica concert and ask the fuckers to turn it down."
Yeah, that's very true. That is pretty
Yeah,
meta.
I mean, full credit, full credit.
Hmm.
Okay, but Parasite. So
Parasite.
it came
Tangent
out in
aside, let's
2019.
yes, a South Korean movie
Mm.
that has, from what I can understand, a pretty star-studded cast, actually. I recognize a few faces. The mother of the rich family and the father of the poorer family, and also the old maid.
Yes, I think those I at least recognized as like you said, the father and the mothers, respectively. Old maid, maybe? I'm not sure. Perhaps. Um Trying to like look through. Yeah, okay, that's Namgung Min-soo, that's him, right?
Hmm.
I think this is the thing, is like Korean films is like I have to admit, I mean, I've watched Korean films, but mainly in thriller and horror. I haven't really branched out too much. I'm changing that opinion now, though. I mean,
Yeah.
that's something that we got talked about the other night when after we were done watching. Is like a lot of the stylistic aspects of it were quite new to me. There was a lot of how the film was constructed that I wasn't used to in cinema.
Hmm.
Whereas my girlfriend, who has actually watched a fair amount of Korean drama and those kind of movies, said that for her it actually was familiar, but really, really well executed here. So this was
Right.
kind of like something. This was a familiar cinematic language, but elevated.
Mm. Yeah, I mean, see, this is the kind of movie where that makes me really, regain my hope and love for film and filmmaking, because
Absolutely.
like every single aspect of it is just executed to near perfection.
Yeah. No, I
From the
mean that's
camera work, from the sound design, from the acting, everything just meshes so beautifully. The set designs, oh my God, the set designs, just
and I have to be honest
incredible.
with you, this blew my mind. Something that isn't gonna be like seen when you're watching this. There are large portions of this movie that feature green screen and CGI.
Yeah, you don't even
So,
notice.
nope.
It's completely seamless.
The craziest one for me is there were two ones that really kind of just blew my mind. The outdoor sequence in the rain, that's filmed on a soundstage.
Really?
So, yeah, the extension of the street, part of the street is real, and then the extension of the street is a green screen extension.
That makes sense because the architecture is very unusual.
Yeah.
So, yeah, interesting.
And the other one was
Wouldn't notice at all.
no, because the thing that was crazy about filming this is that the house does not exist. It's not they did not film on a location. Each room of the house is a soundstage. So when they're outside, the first floor is real, but the second floor of the house was put in digitally.
Interesting.
Yeah, no, I mean it's kind of like it's one of those things where someone really knew how to use the technology and exactly where the technology could be used without it taking away from the experience.
Hmm. Yeah, most definitely. I mean, It definitely fooled me. I thought most of it was real and practical. I had no idea. But now that
Yeah,
you're
no,
mentioning it, it kind of makes sense and it's executed perfectly.
yeah, no, it's like I wouldn't have known. I just saw a thing on YouTube where someone was breaking down some of the aspects of it, and it's masterful how well they've incorporated effects into this.
Mm,
Because I mean, this isn't an effects driven movie. This okay, so for we talked about how the genres are kind of mixed on this thing. I think the one description I saw, and it's one of those like titles I'm not really fond of throwing out there, but I think it really fits here, is seriodrama. So it is seriomedy, I think was the term. So it's
mm.
a comedy, but it's also very serious.
Well, we have to probably mention. So obviously, spoiler alert,
Oh yeah,
because yeah.
we've already
So
told
if you
people to
don't want
watch
to,
this thing. Come on.
yeah, definitely, please do it. So spoiler alert. But this movie is very much divided into two parts. It's almost exactly,
Yes.
so this is a 2 hour movie, and almost exactly at the 1 hour mark, it changes completely. It does like a full 180, and it changes
Yep.
everything about the movie. And the
Yeah,
first
I
half is
mean,
actually really, really funny. It's
oh yeah, it's
surprisingly
great.
funny.
And that's why the second half takes you so much by surprise, is because it is purely a tonal shift. They don't
Hmm.
add elements. All the elements have already been set up during the comedy part. And now they start paying off in really unexpected and unusual ways.
Yeah, very much so. So yeah, let's start with some breakdown of the story, I guess.
Yeah, I think that's kind of where even though it's hard to, I mean, as a spoiler warning, watch it yourself, etc. But the screenplay here is magnificent. That's the thing that
Oh yeah,
really struck me. Each individual aspect of this really works, but it's all built on the foundation that is the screenplay.
yeah, and it
And
was conceived and written by the director.
yeah, no, this is his project.
This is
S-
100% his vision.
Yep. And
Uh,
it just is such a tight concept because the thing that really struck me was starting the movie. You have some very minor hint what the film is about, even just from the poster.
mhm.
But the
Actually, the
film
poster kind
doesn't.
of threw me off a little bit because it looked so
Oh.
well. Well, the poster threw me off when I started watching the movie because the poster looks so
Hmm.
mysterious. It's got like these people, maybe like a dead body on the ground, and then there's like these black lines on their eyes and stuff. So it's really
Hmm.
like mysterious and and interesting. And then when you start watching the movie, it's so funny and it's almost like a con movie. It starts out. So it's like really,
Yeah.
really threw me for a loop. I'm like, what is this movie about?
Yeah, no, I'm completely on board for that. But the thing I will give this film full credit for is that the film at no point is trying to slow you down. Everything that happens to tell you about the character is also part of the narrative. There's no
Yes.
wasted space. There's no dead weight at
Yeah,
all.
no. This movie, I mean, I bet they spent a long, long time in the editing room because it is such efficient film. Sorry, such
Yep.
efficient filmmaking.
Oh yeah.
Every single
Crazy.
shot is deliberate. Every single piece of dialogue is deliberate. Absolutely everything in the movie is very deliberate and has purpose, meaning, and is not doesn't overstay its welcome in any way. And this is
No, I
very
mean,
much an example of show don't tell, where even sometimes shots would linger on someone's face, and you just these like subtle expressions, and that's all you need to understand what this character is going through.
yep.
And it's really, really nice to see that executed so well.
Yeah, and I mean the thing that is it is almost a masterclass on screenwriting. I mean, this is something
Hmm.
I've studied. I've never seen every single lesson I've ever been told all being put into effect in one film.
Yeah.
It's doing everything every screenwriter is told to do, but it's doing everything at the same time. Every single line of dialogue is moving the narrative forward, informing the momentum of the film, and giving you information about the characters involved. Every scene is pushing towards has its own beginning, middle, and end, and yet is pushing towards the larger narrative structure. It's just crazy how tight this screenplay is.
Yeah, most definitely. And this definitely stands out even so the director, Bong Joon-ho, really
Mm.
prolific, doesn't have a lot of movies under his belt, but almost all of them have been really well received. But this one
Oh yeah.
stands out even among them. This is an absolutely insane achievement that he's been able to produce. Yeah.
Mainly because of how small it is. It is it's almost like a chamber scene drama. It's all very much around a one house, two family thing. It's not an epic story at all, but it is masterfully crafted, and it is, from what I've understood, an incredibly visceral attack almost on aspects of Korean society.
Yeah, I mean, I would even argue that this is very much, I mean, the major themes of the movie are very much universal, and even the way that
Oh
they're
yeah.
executed are so relatable. And I think that's why so many people at, at the Oscars and worldwide generally relate and appreciate this movie is because everyone can sort of see themselves or put themselves in these situations because
Yeah,
they're so
you're on one of
universal.
the
And
other side. There is very little in between here.
yeah, speaking of one on the other side, one of the things that struck me about this movie was that there aren't any deliberate bad guys or good guys.
No,
So like
not really.
the protagonists actually are the worst, if you will.
Yeah, no,
They're you know
definitely.
they start up. I mean, they lie, they cheat, they're con men essentially, and they do anything and everything to sort of get one up. But at the same time, they're not deliberately hurting anyone. And the same thing with the rich guys. So in Hollywood, typically, if you have like a rich CEO or something, they're
Hmm.
always super obvious to be like evil and you can see them from a mile away. They have that demeanor about them. But here, they're just regular people. They care about the same things most middle class families care about, you know.
Yeah, I mean,
And
I'd
it
almost
seems it.
say, yeah, go for it.
Yeah, go ahead.
I would almost say when writing this, if I either the exact quote or a variation of this quote was somewhere on a wall. And it's a quote I use quite often, and I've used it with you before. People are not fundamentally good or fundamentally bad. People are fundamentally people.
Yeah,
There are
exactly.
no, yeah, there are no cliches or themes on legs in this story. It's all people.
Yeah, and I might be getting a bit ahead of myself, but I think like the main villain essentially is lack of solidarity, I would say. And since we're in spoiler territory, I can mention. So
Mm,
when you eventually get past the 1 hour mark and the movie shifts, when the old maid is pleading for them to,
mm,
because they're both in the same class and whatever, when she's pleading for them to not tell,
yeah.
they don't show any solidarity between either of them. So even when the tables turn, the other one also refuses to help the
Oh,
situation.
yeah, completely.
Both of them refusing to see that they need each other to get out of this alive, essentially.
Yeah, no, I mean, it really is an interesting. Okay, so the setup for the story, because we are getting off track because it's so hard to
Yeah.
talk about the actual story in a lot of ways, is that we begin with a family who are clearly on hard times. They are
Yes.
folding pizza boxes in a semi basement to pretty much earn food money.
Yeah. And just to mention the semi basement, that opening shot, absolutely wonderful
Oh yeah.
because it's this tiny window where light does come in and you get to see the outside world, but at the same time, they're still underground. And that
Yep.
relates, I mean, the way that that relates to the rest of the movie is absolutely beautiful.
Yeah, I mean the cinematography here is simply I mean it's glorious. There is
Yeah,
again, we're talking about like the efficiency. There is never a shot wasted.
no, not even
And
in the
it's
slightest.
I mean the thing that really struck me is that in this beginning we're having where we'll get there in just a little bit, but there's a conversation between um, the son of this poor family, who I believe is called uh,
Sun
what is
Kyun
his
Lee, right?
name? Hmm?
Sun Kyun Lee.
Yes, I believe that's him. Yeah.
Yeah.
And Sung Kyung Lee is having a conversation with his, I think, school friend or something along that nature.
Yeah.
And it's a simple shot reverse shot. They keep cutting back and forth. But cinematography is doing so many interesting subtle things to reflect the nature of the conversation. So the camera is ever so slightly shifting its where it's looking at each character every time we cut between them and how close it is and if it's moving
Hmm.
at all. And it's then like I'm just watching it and I'm thinking to myself, wow, someone is doing one of these conversations better than the Coen brothers. And they are the masters of this.
Yeah. Yeah, like how the camera goes slightly below as the conversation
Mm,
continues, slightly forming a lower angle on the friend while
yep.
while maintaining level but zooming in closer and closer on the sun.
Yeah, and it's giving you information about what's going on inside his head. And that's
Hmm.
exactly what this it's all about. It's all about information. And
Yeah,
every
and
camera
the
shot is
thing like
doing that.
exactly, and it's they don't even like you don't have to spell it out to people. You can literally
Nope.
see the cogs turn in their heads just from their facial expressions, which is why I think this is one of the best acting I've seen. Even though it's in a foreign culture and a foreign language, I still think that this is some of the best acting I've ever seen so far.
Oh yeah, no, the acting is astounding. You could watch this thing on mute and you would still understand what was happening.
Pretty much, yeah.
So we have this
Especially
yeah, yeah, go for it.
Kang Ho Song, the
Kang Ho
father.
Song, yeah.
Yeah, amazing acting. I mean, every
Yeah,
little
no.
minor twitch on his face is just tells so much. Incredible.
Yeah, I mean he's kind of like the Bong Joon-ho staple guy. He's the one who shows up in almost all his films, I believe.
Yeah, because he was both in Snowpiercer and Memories of Murder, and I think the host as well. He's the guy with the yellow hair, right?
Yeah, he is the guy with the yellow hair. I mean,
Yeah.
he is the go-to guy, and you can tell why. I mean, this is the performance he gives here is so subtle
Hmm.
and yet so incredibly engaging. You can't take your eyes off this guy. And it's bizarre because it's not the most dynamic character. He's not actually the one pushing things along, but he is you can almost like feel his influence in his family.
Yeah, definitely. And I also have
Ah,
to give props to the sister,
oh yeah,
Soham Park, I believe her name
Sodam Park.
is.
Yeah, she's really good
Yeah,
in this.
I mean, all her scenes had me just laughing so hard, my stomach started cramping. She's incredible. Her comedic timing and the nonchalantness of her entire character and the
Oh
timing
yeah,
of the jokes were just so perfect. I love them.
yeah. No, she has a fantastic kind of I don't even know what to call it. It is perhaps the best use of teenage disinterest I've ever seen on screen.
Right?
There's a shot later in the film where she is sitting on a toilet that is pretty much exploding beneath her, and she's just taking a smoke. And the
Yeah,
level of oh fuck it is off the charts.
yeah. Yes. Speaking of like
Mm.
class difference and stuff, I love the placement of that toilet.
Oh
It's in a
yeah,
lot of
no, it's
scenes. The fact that you have to even to go to the bathroom, you still have to climb stairs. It's worth mentioning that stairs and windows have incredible
mm.
importance to the story and are
Oh yeah, no, it's
really
all over this thing.
it's symbolism done almost perfectly, I would say. I mean,
Oh
it's
yeah.
the best symbolism on film that you will find, in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean it's not heavy-handed or layered on top. It's just built into the groundwork.
Yeah, exactly.
Because I mean, and getting back to it, we start off with this, which is that we are in this basement, we meet this family, and we meet this family having, I think, a conversation at least most human beings alive today with a phone have had. Oh shit,
Hmm.
we can't connect to the Wi-Fi anymore because someone put a password on it. Is there a cafe nearby that we can hook up with?
Yeah. And the son and the daughter go to the bathroom with their
Yeah.
phones trying to
So we're,
connect. It's
we're
good.
montaging, we are being shown the geography of this apartment by people walking around with their phones trying to get a signal.
Yeah, and the fact that they did that as well, because the geography of the apartment has an important role to play later on in the film when the
Mm-hmm.
flood happens.
Yep.
The fact that they did that so seamlessly in the beginning, that you don't even realize that you're understanding the geography of the house, or they're guiding you through it, because it's so engaging the conversation that they're having, and it's so funny. The execution is so so well done that
And it,
you don't even notice that you're being deliberately shown the geography of the house.
yeah, I mean, and there's also here at the beginning, my favorite three shots in the film aren't almost plot relevant at all. There was three little shots that I saw during the film which were pretty much setting up a thing, establishing a thing, and then paying off a thing. And the first one's right up front here. We get a couple of pictures of things on the wall. And we get this in
Hmm.
both the main houses, but we get this one first
Yeah.
here in the underground apartment. And one of the photos they decide to focus on is the wife, the mother in the family, clearly engaged in some kind of I don't know what this sport is called. Is when you have the ball on the chain.
Yeah, yeah.
It's not hammer toss, but it's something of that nature.
It's kind of like lacrosse or something. I don't know.
Yeah, and there's a picture of her at a clearly at high level athletic event doing this, right?
Hmm.
And it's just one of those shots, and you're like, okay, that's a good indication that they are on hard times, but they weren't always on hard times.
Right.
Later on in the film, we see her doing this activity on the lawn of the other house. She's doing
Yeah.
this spinning thing. Here's why it pays off is because during the flood we keep coming back to, the first thing her husband chooses to save, the first thing he moves to is a silver award for that sport hanging on the wall.
Yeah, you're absolutely right.
And for being a family, and this is the thing, so little exposition happens that we're not being told how this family is in terms of their relationship. It's all shown through how they interact with each other.
Hmm.
This is the clearest indication that this man loves his wife.
Yeah. And it's also further set up because in a lot of his conversations with the rich father,
Mm.
he keeps asking him, but you do love your wife, right? He
Yeah,
keeps asking him
it
that
keeps,
question.
or at least implying the question in how he speaks. Yeah.
Hmm. And you can sort of see the difference in the relationships between the two.
Oh yeah.
Even when they're having that little drinking scene and how when they're joking around, like you don't really see the rich family do that. They have a much less tight knit family relationship, you can say.
Yeah, I mean, that's, I mean, like you were talking about solidarity. I think it's the one thing this family has because when the rich husband is questioned about it, I think he even has a line, love, yeah, let's call it that.
Exactly. No, that's he does say that.
And you're like, I'm sorry, what?
While looking at VR applications.
Oh, my Lord. Oh God, it's just there's so many little things. But yeah, no, I mean, so we start off, we establish this apartment, we meet the son, the daughter,
Hmm.
and the
They're folding
husband and
pizza
wife,
boxes.
who are Kang Ho Song. Yeah, Kang Ho Song, who's playing Ki Taek.
Sun Kyun Lee, which is the
Uh,
son, I
I
believe it.
believe Seung Kyun Lee, who's the son, who's playing
So,
Don Ik, and the daughter
mhm.
who you mentioned, which is Sodam Park. and the wife, which is Hye Jin Jang.
Yeah,
I know we're butchering these names, and we
apologies
can
up
only
front.
apologize. And
Yes.
she's playing Chung Suk. Yeah, no, no. I mean, we neither of us are native Korean speakers by any measure at all, so we're doing our best
Yeah,
here.
so you see them folding pizza boxes, or yeah, and the efficiency.
The pizza boxes come later because this is the
Yeah,
thing
they
because they
disconnect the
need to
Wi-Fi.
connect.
That's
They
true.
need to find the
Yeah,
Wi-Fi because they need to connect to WhatsApp, and the WhatsApp is what tells them that they
exactly.
need to
That's
fold
true.
pizza boxes. And then there's this bizarre thing where they folded the pizza boxes, and it turns out that there's
Mm.
fumigation going on
Oh, that's such a
outside,
beautiful scene.
and they decide, oh God, and they decide not to close the windows because it gives them
Hmm.
free extermination. And they're in this apartment folding pizza boxes while choking
Yeah.
on
Oh, that's
gas.
such a gut punch when you see it. Oh my God.
Oh, and then we're focusing on the dad who is watching this video of how to do the folding intently when he's clearly like eyes red in
Hmm.
this poison, just single-mindedly focused, and you're just like, what? Because it tells you
Yeah,
so much
and
about this man.
speaking of that, he's the only one. So the payoff, speaking of setups and payoffs, the payoff is
Mm,
in not too many scenes after that. You see that he's the only one that's folding it
yep.
really, really efficiently in the family, and he does it just
Yes,
like the
exactly.
video, and it's really, really impressive.
He's doing exactly like the video, but the other thing is that while it's never shown who, one member of the family was
Yes.
fucking it up. Because when they come to collect the boxes, 1 out of 4
Hmm.
is a defect. And we're never told who the person was who was screwing it up.
Yeah, yeah, and it's not really important to know. It's just to know that it's to basically set up that this family would do anything to protect each other, which then comes into question when
Oh yeah,
later on in the movie when we meet the old maid and the other stuff. Which speaking of solidarity, so yeah, it's
yeah,
just setting that up.
yeah. We're
Yeah,
getting there.
it's just literally setting that
Yeah,
up.
and it because a lesser movie would have used that as an opportunity to sow
Hmm.
early drama. There would have been an argument. There would have been a fight.
Absolutely.
But the second they even smell the chance that the son might be able to get a job delivering these pizzas, the entire family immediately goes into action. And you see the early signs of this kind of interesting teamwork they've
Hmm.
developed, this survival instinct.
Yeah, yeah, and that's actually, I mean, it reminded me of movies like Ocean's 11 and the like, where you see this intricate teamwork being played out, and everyone has their own goal and their own mission, and they sort of do it together as a team. It was so well well done in this movie in the first half that like it's so incredibly entertaining just seeing them how they play off each other.
Yeah, I mean, the film that
Uh,
came to my mind when I was watching the beginning of this film, bizarrely, was Trading Places
okay,
with Eddie Murphy
explain
and Dan
please.
Aykroyd.
Yeah.
No, because like the later part of that film is kind of a heist movie being performed by buddies. They're not a team, they're not professionals. They're kind of just bungling along as best they can, but they are clever enough to pull it off.
Hmm.
And this is the thing, these people are not con artists. It's very obvious from the way they talk that this is not their usual behavior. But they are all intelligent, capable people.
Hmm.
None of them is like the screw up. None of them is a drug addict. None of them is dragging down the team. Everybody in this unit can step up to the plate at a moment's notice and actually be relatively brilliant. But they are not professionals.
No, but it's actually really, really interesting to see how. So because this family is in this position that they're in, and because they're as determined as they
Hmm.
are, they they not only rely on their wits, they have to be witty. When you contrast it with the
Yes.
richer family, who are often often stated that they're simple people, You know, they're naive, they're rich, you know. I
They're
think
gullible.
yeah, I think the wife even says that, you know, the husband says, "Oh, she's so nice despite being rich," and then the wife says, "No, she's nice because she's rich." You know?
Yeah, if I was rich, I'd be even nicer.
Yeah.
And that's such a great conversation because it is so telling.
Yeah, and it actually, I mean, you know, that piece of dialogue kind of sums that portion of the movie really, really well. And
Oh yeah.
it shows just how much of a difference privilege can have in that situation.
I mean, and what also happens in that scene that we were talking about acting earlier is that the wife compares her husband to a cockroach.
Yeah.
And he has this angry outburst, which turns out to be a joke, kind of. Because we see later in the film that he absolutely is harboring some strong resentment about all this, but it isn't channeled towards his family at all.
No.
But it is this idea that he is the comparison to a cockroach is not actually insulting in a way. It's something he kind of accepts about himself. It's such a bizarre internal like headspace going on for some of these characters. There's another bit where
Hmm.
the son is talking about the fact that he's forged university papers. And
Yeah, which his sister helps
yeah,
forge.
the sister helps. And he says, I don't see this as lying. I'm just printing my papers a little early.
Yeah.
It's such an interesting rationalization
I
because
like that
all
you
of these
brought that up.
people, yeah,
Yeah, go ahead. Finish
because
your point.
all of they all take on jobs in this household, but they're all qualified to do them.
Yeah.
They're all good at their jobs.
Yeah, actually, funny enough, yes. I mean, the father with his driving skills, the rich husband mentions it straight away that his driving skills are impeccable. The
Mm,
mother with the household cleaning and maintenance, she does the job really, really well because you know she's used to it, I guess.
yep.
uh, at least that's what she says. And then the daughter is really, really, really good at acting and
Yes. Very.
and forging, basically, within the context of the movie. I mean, and so she
Mm.
plays this sort of like art tutor,
Art
kind
therapist.
of art therapist. Yeah, that's what it was, art therapist for the youngest son of the rich family, and
Hmm.
then the son Dong Ik
Mm.
is a really good English speaker, yeah, even according to his friend who used to be the old tutor but had to travel and so recommends him
Yes.
to do the job instead. And so they were all really,
With this
really good.
interesting little assumption. Yeah, so what ends up happening is that his friend shows up and gives them a stone, which is some kind of
Oh yeah,
sculpture, I believe, and it's
it's
meant to bring prosperity.
mhm.
And then he asked his buddy, "Can you tutor this girl while I'm gone? Don't worry about credentials. Just forge something. I'll give you my recommendation." And it turns out the big reason he does it is not because he thinks this guy is the best for the job. It's
Yeah,
because he trusts him not to, move in on his girl, quote unquote.
quote unquote.
And again, it's this thing where the assumption is apparently that young poor guy isn't up to, he's not a threat.
Exactly. And that's you can see the reaction in the actor's face when he gets that information and
Mm.
how it's a very subtle change in demeanor. It's just a slightly lowering of the lips, slightly lowering of the eyes, but it changes the atmosphere completely. And it helps that the camera slowly zooms in while this is occurring.
Yeah, I mean the way I thought of it in my head is that it's exactly that point in the documentary when you're watching the large cat extend its claws
Hmm.
You know what I mean? It's like you're watching that aspect of the animal come forth
Right.
because he was willing to
Exactly.
be good. He wasn't his mind hadn't gone anywhere until he got this presumption placed on him. And
Yep.
then there is that shift in demeanor that goes from the nice friend to the opportunist.
Exactly. And it's played off so well.
Oh yeah.
I can't stress enough. I mean, I know I keep mentioning it, but it's done so well.
Oh, it is
It's
so
still
subtle. I
surprising
mean,
to me.
it's so subtle, but it's also so ingrained into how this thing is written. I mean, the one that really got me is that he has his lesson, he has a really interesting little moment with the girl he's going to tutor when he takes her pulse,
Hmm.
and he's talking about just cutting through the weeds, and that's how you treat an exam. And it's an interesting moment, but the really telling moment is when he gets back and he says he's talked about, like, he's created this character to teach art. The sister isn't surprised. The sister says, "Oh, are we moving along that quickly?"
Yeah.
This is not some random opportunity. They are clearly on the lookout to ingratiate themselves into this family's world, and it is the plan from the get go. This is lesson one, and they're already planning.
Yeah. It's the way that the family sort of goes through with their plan.
Mm.
Incredibly, it's almost as efficient as the filmmaking is in this film, where
Oh,
where
yeah.
they go like day after day. It's just a new person introduced into the fold.
Yeah, and I mean, they are really, really subtle about it. There is nothing extravagant. And the thing we are not seeing is like big planning scenes or anything like that because it doesn't necessary. It doesn't add anything. We are judging these people by their actions, not by their words.
Hmm.
And I think that's kind of
And
the
just
interesting thing.
seeing,
Mm,
yeah,
go for it.
exactly, and seeing just uh, how quick on their feet they are and how opportunistic they are. Like for example, when the sister gets offered to be driven home by the old driver.
Yeah.
Uh, and then while she's there, she talks with him and then immediately gets the idea to leave her panties there so that he gets scolded by the rich father. And it's so well done because you can literally see in the character's face that like, oh wait a minute, I can do this and this and this and this will result in this and that. Like you can see the plan unfolding in their heads,
Yeah, I mean, she even
which is
calls
really,
it, I
really
laid
interesting.
a trap in the car.
Yeah, exactly.
But I mean, the thing that got me there is that when we were watching it last night, there is that moment where they say, "Oh, can you drive?" The driver comes in and they said, "Oh, you're not busy. Can you drive her home?" And he says, "Yes." And we're both sitting there going, "Oh shit, he's gonna have to drive her home." I mean, that this could screw the
Hmm.
plan. This is a problem. And it's not because she is right on it, just going like, "No, drop me at the station." And the second he starts pushing it, she's like, number one, she registers that and says, "This is
Hmm.
information." And then two, she immediately, as you said, just pulling off this incredible little piece of acting as a character, not as an actress, just kind of like gives this guy the "I have a boyfriend" treatment and puts him in his place. And then after that, that's when you can see those cogs turning again. And it's just this little look at him, little look at the seat, and then she just does it. There is so little of this, what we, I guess, what you could call the Hollywood hand holding thing, where you're just going like, "Oh, should I do this?
Yeah,
Should I do that?"
exactly. And
There is no devil or angel on the shoulder here. This is just people who are practical and thinking and taking opportunities.
exactly. And I think why this movie was so successful in the way that it did it is because it's so intuitive. The decisions that they're making
Mm.
are incredibly intuitive. Like there's a lot of movies where you would probably need a little bit of handholding because you can't really see how they come to that conclusion. Famously, in like
No.
detective movies, where a detective
Oh yeah.
figures this out and then he has to explain to everyone and to the audience, more importantly, how they figured it out. Here, they don't need to do that because everything falls into place, and we, the audience, sort of know what's going through their heads by their actions immediately because it's so intuitive.
Yeah, I mean, and the thing that I will say here is like again, the odd thoughts that come into my head is that because nothing that happens seems unreasonable. You
Exactly.
can understand why this rich family gets duped because everything that happens is very much a opportunity seen, opportunity taken kind of situation. If
Hmm.
they hadn't taken this opportunity, they would have taken a different one.
Oh yeah,
But I mean,
guaranteed.
these people are moving into this family like, Julius Caesar seizing the Roman Empire. It is speed upon speed. They're 3 steps ahead all the time, and they're not doing it purposefully. That's just how they operate.
Hmm.
And I mean, my favorite for that is when they are clearly rehearsing the dad in giving a speech, and they stop him to bring the emotion down because he's overplaying it. But they
Yeah,
predicted what the wife is gonna say
yeah, almost to a T.
to a T, and you're just sitting there going, and considering all the setup, you believe it completely.
Hmm.
It's nuts. So I mean,
Yeah. So
the son goes, and he is the English tutor who then he sees they have a son who is artistically inclined but a problem child, hyperactive, something something, and he brings in his
well,
sister.
well, the mother believes that the kid is artistically inclined.
Yes,
Yeah.
judging by the giant hilarious picture he's drawn that they put on the wall.
Yeah, actually, speaking of, because you mentioned at the beginning of the movie, they focus in on the pictures of the house, the
Mm,
half basement that the poorer family lives in.
yes, very much
And
so.
then the minute that he walks into the rich people's house, by the way, speaking of stairs, they have to literally go up the road and climb upstairs to get into the rich house. So that's just to mention the symbolism.
Yeah,
But yeah,
after
so
they've
he
gone
walks
through
through
a
this
key
house.
door.
Yeah, so he walks through this house, and then you see the pictures that this family has, and it's like a
Mm.
wedding photo. It's a family photo. Everything is very staged, very uh, organized,
And they're
which in
huge.
contrast, and they're really big, yeah, which contrasts their pictures, which is, it's a picture of the mother in the action of performing the sport, which is not staged at all. It's like it's in the moment, it's spur of the moment kind of thing,
Mm.
and it just shows how differently these families operate.
I mean, the one that really got me is when we're talking about camera and such, that the camera style changes. When we're in the little
Hmm.
apartment, we have a moving camera, which is kind of moving around quite naturalistically. We have some handheld going on. When we enter into this home, which is gorgeous, by the way, the architecture is incredible. We end up with a lot of flat framing. We have a lot of flat walls with pictures on them and solid lines in the foreground and people moving through that space on a static camera.
Hmm.
And it gives a very it makes everything much less naturalistic. It makes this place feel like a piece of architecture rather than a home.
Exactly.
And you're always hearing about this architect, the great Noam Jung or whatever it is. And it's like, okay, this is interesting because it is clearly trying to say something.
Yeah, no, no, you're absolutely right. They literally just have steady cams and dolly shots when they're in the big house, as
Mm,
compared to, yeah, in the basements where it's way more naturalistic and floating.
yep. Yeah, no, I mean, this
So,
house is kind of like it's almost its own character. I would almost say both the apartment and the house are so well detailed and so well constructed to reflect their occupants.
and the way that the camera work is in this movie is that you never feel lost within the environment. You
No.
always know exactly where everything is, which is a testament really to the camera work because it's so easy to, shoot a scene in the kitchen, then shoot a scene in the living room without anything linking the two,
Mm.
which happens in so many other movies. But here, you're always aware of your surroundings as a viewer.
Yeah, I
which
mean
so
they
when
established
anything
his
happens,
geography perfectly.
yeah, so when anything happens, you hear a noise, you see someone moving in the background, you know exactly where everything is happening.
Hmm. Which is great because I
Yes.
mean there are parts of this film that get quite tense, and all they need to do is show two characters walking in two parts of the house. But because
Hmm.
everything's been established so well, you know how far away they are from each other.
Exactly.
And it's just it's so I mean there were a couple of moments during this film where I literally just had to sit there and go oh, it's so beautiful because it
I know,
is
right?
the camera work and the cinematography. I mean, I never thought I'd say this in my life. Roger Deakins, eat your heart out some of these shots.
I know, right?
Be- It's
It's
just
absolutely breathtaking.
the
It's
color use.
just
It's so
oh
gorgeous.
no, this entire movie is gorgeous from top to bottom. Even the worst looking locations are beautifully shot. It's I can't praise this movie enough, honestly.
Yeah, I mean that's the thing. Like you say, the worst looking locations. They're worst looking because they're meant to be, but they are perfectly constructed to tell their own story. You're looking at these spaces and you know these people. You take one look around this house kind of unattended because you when we show up with the kid who's going to do the English tutoring, he looks around the house a little bit before we meet the wife of the rich family. And you get such an impression of who these people are and the lives they lead
Hmm.
just by that. And it's
Absolutely.
such a great tool again for information.
Yeah, and very much show don't tell kind of
Oh
information.
yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely.
which I cannot give enough praise to this movie and how they are able to again, it's like you mentioned, the screenplay is so tight that with the least amount of information told to us, are still able to get all the information we need just from the visuals alone. And this all on a budget of less than 12 million estimated. It's estimated at 11.4 million
Hmm.
dollars US. That's crazy to me. It
Is that
grossed
it?
worldwide. Yeah, that's what it says here at
Wow.
least. I don't know how trustworthy this number is, but it's kind of crazy, especially considering that it grossed worldwide 254 or over 254 million dollars. That's a
I mean, good grief.
huge return.
I mean, okay, I'm gonna take a moment here to do a little bit of a shout out because it I feel this is something that isn't being done enough with this movie is that because it is foreign language, a lot of the secondary production crew aren't getting a lot of credit kind of in reviews and criticism from what I've seen.
Hmm.
Everyone's talking about Bong Joon-ho and not anyone else. Kyung Pyo Hong, who is the cinematographer for this, has
Oh, he
done
deserves so much praise.
he's done Parasite, he did Snowpiercer, he's done The Wailing, which I've heard amazing things about. He
I
did
haven't seen that
Burning.
one.
He did Burning, which is another Korean film that is just hugely fantastic, apparently. Just give this guy credit because, good, sweet God, is this movie pretty.
Yeah,
And it's so beautifully shot without being distracting. You don't feel like you're watching a show reel.
yeah, no,
But I
not at
mean, there's
all.
so
This is like
many.
the
Yeah.
antithesis of a Terrence Malick movie.
Oh, yeah, completely.
Yeah,
I mean, this is, again, we're talking about efficiency and use. Every shot, every use of color, the lighting especially, is just magnificent. When they are sitting um, in this garden room, where this living room that has this huge window out to this garden, that
oh,
is
yeah,
a
that's such a
set that is
beautiful.
used for like half the film uses this set. You know what I mean? They don't go a lot of places in this movie, but it is so effective and so beautifully used in each time, and it looks beautiful and different each time because they use the lighting so well.
Yeah, I mean, first of all, because we mentioned the half basement that the Key family lives in,
Mm.
and how they get this tiny sliver of window with a little bit of light shining in and a little peek into the outside world, basically
Yep.
reflecting their position in society. And then contrast that with this house, the bigger house, and how you have this massive wall-sized window, essentially,
Hmm.
out to the garden, which looks gorgeous. And you have so much sunlight beaming in through. It's such a beautiful contrast. And again, it's literally just shown to the audience without explaining it, without even deliberately talking about it. Just to give you the overall feeling. So you feel claustrophobic in the half basement, but you feel very open and almost relief in the bigger house. And it's just done so beautifully.
Yeah, no, it's crazy. I mean, and the thing that really gets me is that I think there was one scene where the most cinematography the film gets is using slow motion, but
Hmm.
it is slow motion as I have never seen it used before in my life. Because to give you such a contrast, you have the rich people's house where you see a thunder and lightning storm going on outside this huge window. Fine. Cut to, in a different part of the movie, the poor people looking outside their window at a man pissing on their doorstep pretty much,
Yeah.
and the son goes out to spray water on him, and the father goes out with a bucket of water, and the peeing on versus water bottle versus bucket of water becomes a slow motion visual spectacle.
All through the lens of that tiny window in their half
Yeah, and
basement.
it's like
It's
that's
so well done.
fantastic.
Oh, yeah. And there's actually not a lot of slow motion scenes. There's that one. There's the ending, or toward the
Yeah, the
climax, I
ending
should
as
say.
well. Climax.
And there's one of the funniest scenes in the whole movie when they're all chasing for the phone.
Yep. Oh
Yeah,
God, yes, they're all
absolutely.
chasing for this phone.
Yeah,
That's amazing.
they're all grabbing each other and basically having like a tumble over each other. And it's so funny. I love that scene so much.
Yeah, I think because so the first half of the film is these people are invading this home pretty much. They're taking the position as the tutors, they're taking the position of the housekeeper, and they're taking the position of the driver.
Hmm.
And then so now all four people, no, all four of the poor family are in employment to this family,
Yes.
which leads to the middle of the film where
Yeah. I should
the
also mention
yeah, go for it.
before we move on. So the entire family is employed and they're making quite a bit of money, but you never see any of the characters break their uh, their persona.
Austerity.
Yeah. So you never see them all of a sudden splurge and buy a Tesla or
No.
like a really nice suit or anything. No, this is very much a family that knows that they don't have forever to do this and are just doing
Yep.
this because out of pure necessity.
Yeah, I mean they eat more. That's kind of the only change.
Yeah, and then that's because they eat at the rich family's house.
They eat at the oh, they also go to a driver's cafeteria.
Yeah, yeah, that's such a good scene. I love it.
And that's where they also like you get such an indication of this family is because they're talking and they're going like, "Oh yeah, you used to drive, but did you drive then or were you a valet or was this after this business you tried went bust or after this business you tried went bust?"
Yeah.
So they're clearly been pushing and trying different things and trying to make this work. It just hasn't worked out for them.
Mm. And this final
Which
attempt.
reflects and this is
Yeah, go ahead.
yeah, and that's kind of where it takes us because it's like I feel we're giving so much credit to how it looks and the feel of it, but where this movie really begins to become something special is when the rich family goes away for camping. The poor family pretty much takes over their home
Yeah, and have a little
and
drunken
then
stupor.
have a little drunken stupor. We've been drinking Voss water
Yeah.
from the fridge.
Uh,
Just love that.
I know. It's such
And
a
it's just,
yeah.
and then the maid who they got out of the house by pretending she had tuberculosis because she has a peach allergy. Boy, oh boy, is that insidious.
Oh, yeah. And that's pretty much the most insidious thing that they do, and that's the thing that
Yeah,
comes and bites them in the ass, essentially.
exactly. Because suddenly she's back on the doorstep. And then things get crazy.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure they even mention at one point when they're planning out what to do to get her fired,
Mm.
that she's such a nice lady and that this is the family loves her. Are we sure that we want to go through with this, essentially?
Yep.
And it's not set up to create family drama. It's just set up like
Mm.
we have to really be careful how we do this because this is a very delicate situation. But everyone is still on board, very much so, because like there's the solidarity between the family itself, essentially.
Yeah, I think there's even a point where the sister, when drunk, pretty much just says, "Don't worry about anyone else. Worry about me. Worry about
Yeah,
us."
exactly. And that happens right before the doorbell, and that's the crux of the issue of
Yeah.
the whole situation that this family falls under is because of that one statement essentially is that care about us but not about other people, and that's the downfall essentially.
Because suddenly this woman is coming in, this old maid is coming in, and this is where I get hesitant. Do we want to talk about what happens next? Because we've avoided it so far, and in case someone's been listening up till now, it's kind of like, oh God, I don't know.
Yeah, no, I agree with you because this movie is very much best seen going in cold.
Yeah, and I don't
And
think up till now, everything we've talked about you can get away with. It's what happens next we don't want to get into.
yeah, because that's when the shift of the movie happens.
Yeah.
um, it's also worth mentioning when we're talking about themes and how they reflect. Yeah, you mentioned it as well. You were talking about how this rich family, they're sleeping and there's this uh, rainstorm essentially happening outside, and it looks gorgeous from their big window. But
Mm-hmm.
then at the same time, you have the Key family rushing back home to find that their half basement is flooded with sewage.
Yep.
And that's where you get the scene where the daughter is just sitting on the toilet that's just gushing
Yeah, and the husband is
excrement.
trying to save the award, and
Yeah,
it's
and
just
it's just having it spoke, and it's such a beautifully shot contrast between the two. And you
yeah, and
can't
they
really
even
blame the rich family because they don't really. I think that's what this movie does so well is that the rich family, like you were saying, these are people are just people. They're not
yep.
inherently bad or inherently good. They didn't. They don't want to hurt anyone.
No.
They just don't know any better. Essentially, like that's the crux of it. Is they just don't know any better. They haven't
Yeah.
experienced what the other half goes through.
Yeah, I mean there's one bit like right afterwards like they're talking the rich wife after all this has happened is talking about, "Oh yeah, the weather's so clear and there's no pollution. That rain really cleared it up. What a blessing."
Hmm.
And you're
Hmm.
just watching the husband of the poor family who's driving and you're just like, "Oh no."
Yeah, because they had to stay at a gymnasium where they only saved a few things, even like clothing. They just basically stole the next day.
Yep.
They just stole some clothes, uh,
Oh man.
sleeping on the floor. And it's just that, yeah. And another thing to mention the rich wife mentions is the smell, right?
Oh, yeah,
Yeah,
the smell keeps coming up, and it's kind of the one thing that really doesn't put you on favor for this family is because the husband the rich husband's a dick.
yeah,
I mean, this actor is great. He carries it really well. He's not cartoonish, he's
yeah.
not
It's not
evil.
overacting
He's
at all.
just
It's just
no, he's just kind of an arrogant sod.
yeah. He's arrogant in the exact right amount, and he also is oblivious. Let me say to the not just oblivious. Like he doesn't even care about the rest of the world to a certain
No.
degree, and he just like even his wife and his family. They're just there as almost like props for him for his enjoyment.
Yes.
And but it's never overacted or overstated. It's just you just notice it about this character.
Yeah, and then he does is that he talks about the so he mentions this smell because we've ended up in this kind of like farcical era situation where how to put this like the family is hiding and listening to the rich family talk, and he does it's the only sign that really like puts you against these people is when they're talking about like the fact that the father of the poor family, the Mr. Kim as they called him,
Hmm.
has a smell that he associates with the subway.
Yeah,
And it's like the smell comes up a few times. There's also the son who says that all of the family who are now like the poor family smell the same.
yeah, yeah. That's true.
And it's just kind of like it's interesting. It's the reason that kind of it becomes interesting is because it is such a level of not understanding and kind of selfishness to just judge someone by that because he keeps talking about crossing the line. And he's used that phrase before. And it's kind of an indicator that I don't know how to put this, but he feels that if people who are working for him are too familiar, he calls that crossing the line.
Yeah,
And then the smell crosses the line, and you're kind of sitting there going, ah, you're a dick, aren't you?
yeah. Which is his character, so it actually plays really well.
It plays really well, but this poor family's listening, and the dad is just kind of, you can tell he is ashamed of himself and yet maintaining himself.
Hmm.
It's quite a deep moment, which then leads to the most awkward reaching of third base in cinema history.
Well, before you get into that, which is incredibly dumb, by the way. But before you get into that, because you mentioned earlier how when the his wife mentions that he's a cockroach
Hmm.
or like a cockroach, he gets triggered by that.
Yep.
And when they mention the smell, and every time they mention the smell, you can see him get triggered again and again, and you can see that this is taking a mental toll on him.
Hmm.
And that has a very beautiful payoff later on in the
Yes,
movie.
it
But
really
yeah,
does.
yeah. But
No, I
yeah,
mean this
let's talk
again,
about
this
let's talk
movie's
about
always
third
setting it
base.
up.
Yeah, that's true.
Oh my God. I think that's gonna like I think for the sake of everyone listening, we shouldn't go into the tonal shift too much or the dramatic
Hmm.
reveals that come later because I feel that's better reserved for the actual viewing.
Yes,
But
I
I do
completely
need to
agree.
talk about this
Yeah, this
because
happens, I think, before, so it's okay.
my God, what in the actual world are we watching? Because their little son is outside. He has decided he's going to sleep in a tent tonight because they were going to go camping and it failed, so he's now in the tent. Okay.
Yeah, because it was raining.
Yeah. So the husband and wife decide they're going to sleep on the couch to keep an eye on him. Good. Okay. That's actually good parenting. Good for you people.
Hmm.
And then, oh, every line of dialogue in the semi-sex scene that happens next is a treasure. Everything they say is bizarre and hilarious. The thing that the two that really got me is because yeah, he pretty much just starts, manhandling his wife, and she obviously is like, oh no, we can't. He's outside. He's like, it'll be fine. Don't worry about it. And things get handsy. At which
To put it
point,
lightly.
oh my god, there's a two-line exchange between them that just kills me, and I literally burst out laughing.
Yep.
The wife says he's playing with her breasts, to put it lightly. The wife
Hmm.
says clockwise.
Yes.
Okay. At which point she begins reaching into his trousers, his pajama trousers, and
Hmm.
he says the most bizarre line I've heard ever at a sex scene. You know where it is.
Yep.
I I don't know if that's a lost in translation issue
I
or
think it might be because it does feel very out of place in that
it
scene.
I just I'm sorry. What?
But I think it adds character and texture to the whole
Oh, doesn't
to
it
the whole
just
scene.
oh, absolutely because it is it feels so unsexy because the thing the husband says next, which is just mind blowing, he is talking about the panties that the sister left in the car.
Yeah.
which he refers to as those cheap panties. And
Hmm.
he says, if you put those on, I'll get rock hard. And you're just honestly with your head in your hands going, I'm sorry. What are we watching?
But it's done so realistically, though.
Yeah, I mean,
Not
it's
that I imagine anyone doing that in real life, but the way that they present the scenario, it's done so realistically that although it is a face palm situation,
oh
it's very much in character and just seeing the way that the because is it worth mentioning that the family is hiding in the desk in front of
oh
them?
yeah, no, we mentioned it already. They're there. They're this is
Yeah,
voyeuristic.
yeah, because they're hiding underneath the desk. Uh, the coffee table, and
The
they're
coffee
just
table.
laying there and waiting for them to fall asleep so that they can sneak out. And they just have to listen to them and almost witness them
Mm.
having this really awkward, borderline rapey sex,
Yeah,
which
it's
by the way
so
contrasts
creepy.
really well with the way that uh, the poorer father and his wife interact with each other, which is way more in the loving, caring kind of way, and you can clearly tell that they really love each other, because they caress each other's cheeks and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And then you
Also,
contrast that with this rich family who's like almost raping each other.
there's also the fantastic bit when they're carrying boxes into the house together, and he just grabs her butt, and it's like
Yeah, I
it
know. It's
really
so good.
it's so great because it is really just this wonderful moment of like, oh, they've still got a sex life. Good for them.
Yeah, exactly. And it really sets up like their dynamic together so well
Oh
because it's
yeah.
like they're really cheeky and playful with each other, and it's not this relationship which
Yeah,
the
and
rich people
like
have,
right
which is really
beforehand,
awkward.
when he has this weird trigger moment with the cockroach thing, and then plays it off as a joke, and him and the wife start laughing together. It's not like he says it's a joke and everyone just is awkward. Everyone actually is on board for this, especially the wife.
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
she just says, "I'd break his arm," and then clearly displays she's stronger than him because she's the
Yeah,
athlete of the two.
yeah, exactly.
Cut
So
to
true.
this awkward couple, and it is just, oh, it's uncomfortable, isn't it?
You know where it is.
You know where it is. It's kind of like, oh, dude, that doesn't sound like something you say to your wife, man.
The next time I'm in bed with someone, you know what I'm saying. You know
Yeah, I know
where it
what you're gonna.
is.
No, no, no. I'm sorry, Abdul. I know you well enough.
Clockwise.
The next thing you're gonna, yes, the next thing you're saying is clockwise.
Yes.
I'm sorry.
I might
Oh,
mix it up with a counterclockwise,
counterclock. Oh,
surprise myself
it
even.
got
Whoa.
so weird, and it's so out of nowhere. But it also like right afterwards, it leads to my favorite shot in the film, which is that they've fallen asleep and the family begins to escape, but clearly the husband is the slow one because, the two kids run, and then the husband's trying to make his way across the floor without waking the couple sleeping on the sofa, and then the
Hmm.
son turns on the walkie-talkie and wakes them up. And we get this wide shot of this window and this couple, and just in the corner you see the husband's legs.
Yeah, and he's just stood completely still,
It's just unmoving. And it is this fantastic
waiting for
shot
the.
because you're supposed to be looking at this beautiful vista, but all you can look at are these legs sticking out. It's so great.
Oh
And it's
man,
so funny because this is the thing. It's like even in the darker moments of this film, the comedy like holds true.
yeah.
Ah, it's so great.
No, this is I think this is up there in terms of comedy. This is even more comedic, I would say, than The Dead Don't Die.
Yes,
Because the
actually.
dead don't die.
Don't die. But they
And
live
it's
in your
actually
basement secretly.
yeah, your half basement.
Your half basement secretly. No, I mean
Yeah.
it's yeah, no, I mean it is so funny, but it's not a gut buster. It's not a laugh out loud kind of funny. It's just a consistently I don't know what to call it. It's like a Cohen's brother kind of humor.
Yeah, yeah, no, absolutely.
But
But
it's
I would
actually
even argue it's even executed better than
yeah,
Coen Brothers
exactly. It is
comedy.
executed better. There's something about it that makes it more insidious and yet more well placed.
And like when it comes to comedy, I mean,
Hmm.
Sodan Park, she just fucking nails it
Oh,
out of the
nails
park.
it. Knocks it out of the
Oh
park
man,
every time.
every single scene, especially when she's pretending to be the art
Oh god,
therapist,
just shuts
and
down
she's
every attempt. Oh
I
man.
know she's so good. Oh man, no,
Yeah,
beautiful.
I love this movie. I'm
Yeah.
so glad we did this movie because
Oh yeah.
yeah, I mean we could have talked about this for 5 hours. This movie just
Yeah,
was
we are we
worth
are
going
we
through
are
scene by
really
scene.
pushing the time. We're really pushing the time.
Yep.
Uh, this yeah. So this I mentioned that when we did our top 10 of 2010s
Hmm.
that for me, as much as I loved the Joker and other movies that I've seen in 2019, my favorite pick was Marriage Story, mainly
Yep.
because of how realistic and how wonderful the acting was. It's one of the best acting I'd ever seen. And so that was my pick for best of. But having seen this now, this definitely wins.
Yeah.
Hands
No,
down,
I
this
gotta agree.
wins.
This took top slot for me in 2019. I can. It's so nice to see a movie this deserving win so many awards.
I would almost go so far as to say this is probably one of the best movies of last decade. Like all in all, I don't know if it's just because like yes, it might not be the best in terms of like purely cinematography, even though it's super high up there. It might not be the best in terms of screenplay, again, even though it's super high up there. But just the complete package
Oh yeah,
of
it doesn't step wrong.
acting, design, props, freaking camera work, the
Hmm.
screenplays, etc., etc. Everything was just so well made
Yeah,
that
I mean
all in
the
all,
the
this might
art,
be, yeah,
the art, the construction, the design, every piece of the puzzle is there, and each piece is perfection.
yeah. And then like I can the closest thing, and it's mainly because of what we talked about last week, which was the Nolan retrospective. The
Hmm.
closest thing I can say in terms of how the story unfolds would maybe be something like The Prestige, where it's every little piece of information is already there, and you just have to sort of put it together. But this is and as well executed as The Prestige is,
Hmm.
this definitely takes the cake.
Oh yeah, no, this is better made. Mainly because it isn't. It's doing more with less. It
Yeah,
is less showy, it is less extravagant, it is less epic, and yet it is more impactful.
hmm absolutely,
Ah, I love it.
hands down.
So, yeah, again, please, if you haven't watched this movie, my God, get out, get on this.
Yeah,
Whenever
no,
you're
this is
listening, get on this.
yes, please, for the love of God, all that is holy.
Just do it.
It's yeah, no, it's a wonderful movie. I love it. And it's so funny because I watched this right after I saw another movie called Vivarium, which is also
Mm,
like a little brainy kind of movie or a little art housey, I'd say.
mm.
But just seeing just the level of artistry in this one in comparison to everything else that I've seen, it's just
Yeah.
oh my God,
Oh no, I'm gonna be rewatching this because it is just.
for sure.
This is gonna go on my list of must-sees for people to watch. Like, I recommend certain movies a lot. This is going on there.
No, most definitely. Like I said, for me personally, this is probably like if one of the best, if not the best movie of last decade for me, like as a complete
Yeah,
package.
I think I need to let it ruminate a little bit more, but I can see myself making a similar choice. Definitely.
Yeah. I mean, I'll have to look
Oh,
through my list again, but this just was
God,
incredible.
it really was.
Well, all right. So, I want to give it a final score.
Oh man, this is an essential. What are we
I
kidding? I
know.
mean, come
I
on.
know,
This
right?
is
It's a 10 out of 10.
it's a 10 out of 10. I don't even know which genre to put it under, but my God, is it a 10 out of 10?
Yeah. No, this is definitely an essential movie. This is
Oh
one
yeah.
that everyone who has any sort of minor interest in movies should watch
Yeah, this is the
because
masterclass, man.
yeah, no, if you're especially if you're like an aspiring filmmaker and you want
Oh
to
yeah.
see something done like to perfection, watch
Hmm.
this and study every single piece of this,
Yep. No, completely.
especially the writing. The
Yeah,
writing
no,
is
the
just
story
on point.
structure, the dialogue, the editing, my God, get on
Oh,
this.
yeah.
Oh,
Okay, so where can they reach us?
well, we are on all major streaming platforms at this point. We can be found on Stitcher, iTunes, SoundCloud, Spotify. Just search for Sight on Screen.
Hmm.
We are also on YouTube. We have a YouTube channel, Sight on Screen.
Yes,
And we can be reached if anyone has any comments, questions, things they'd like to tell us, sightonscreen@gmail.com.
yes. And if you want to help support the show, number one, share it with everyone you know, anyone
Yep,
who might be interested, and
spread the word.
spread the word. And also, you can reach us on patreon.com/, sight on screen.
That would be hugely appreciated. But again, just spreading the word is the best thing you can do
Is
for us in
more
these early
important,
days.
yes.
It's kind of what we need. And thank you for listening during these interesting times. I know we're recording remotely and that has its own complications. We are hoping to get back towards a more uh, sonorous multi-dual sound system soon. But until
Hmm.
that time, and while we're all going through what we're going through, thanks for listening, everybody. We do appreciate it.
Thank you so much, and we hope to see you again next week.
And remember, clockwise.
Oh, God.